There's plenty to think about before you buy a home computer.
Electronic games being heralded by folks in the trade as this year's holiday bestseller.
Children have skipped school or stolen money to play the games.
I'll be looking at the electronic game craze.
And at the end of the tape, I'll be back to tell you how to safeguard your computer.
And we're here.
We are on time for once.
For once. Who knew just relaunching the show after way too long of a hiatus would result in actually being on time and things like that.
You hired me to be your caretaker. That's the real reason.
So welcome to, we still got the intro music popping for another couple seconds here. Welcome to what is effectively Streamer Newz Season 3, but we're also pivoting it a little bit to an episode 0 of a new show, which we're calling JAMPACK'd, as it's packed full of all the stuff that I want to talk about but can't necessarily make videos on. And we already got a new channel member from Creators Grimoire as soon as we start here. There we go. But yeah, we got some awesome stuff going on here, and we will go ahead and flip a sweet scene so the intro stops playing. This is going to be a little bit different than Streamer Newz, but also kind of similar, because honestly, if we look at it, by time we stopped Streamer Newz, it was effectively not just a show about Streamer Newz anymore. And so why keep pretending? So we're here. We got new branding. We got awesome stuff. We've got Will. Will's here.
That's me. I'm here. I'm effectively the color commentary.
Yeah. Co-hosts. Just out of transparency, I always do better when I have co-hosts, so don't need angry Epos sitting in a basement going, tech news.
Hey, it's a studio. It's not a basement. But if you are not familiar with who I am, I'm Will. If you're in the Discord, I'm the Discord community manager. But I also run everything for Backing Track. So all that music came from me. And we'll be talking a little bit about that. I guess in a little bit. Now, what do you want to do? You want to do it now, or you want to?
Yeah, we got some news. We've got some interesting stuff to talk about, but I do want to go ahead. We'll play one of we have a couple things to show you. We'll go ahead and hit one of them.
Yeah. So we got a new thing to show you from me. It's coming later this year. I don't have a date yet because we got to finish working on it. But I made a little thing for you. Vox is going to hit it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, brother.
Yeah, so after an entire summer of much more upbeat synth rock, we got some aggression to get out of our systems here. So we're going to be coming back pretty hard with Slayer Wars. If you're a fan of Doom 2016, Doom Eternal, or that Mick Gordon sound, that's what that is. We're doing a whole album of that. Yeah. So if you like those soundtracks a lot, I guarantee you will find something to like here. Again, no date yet. You know, we just literally just started working on it. So you'll hear more about it soon. Head on over to Backing Music on Twitter. You can also find it by searching Backing Track. There's actually a poll up there now, speaking of which, where it would be awesome if people could engage with it. We take a lot of feedback from you guys seriously, and most of the releases that we put out are directly as a result of what you guys tell us you want to hear. So there's a poll up there now. It ends in 2 hours. We're trying to gauge general interest on a new project. Probably won't be rock or metal, but we're trying to figure out what the interest is there. But yeah, follow over there for news on the new album. And there's one other thing. It's I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to who is exactly in the Discord, but there's another person in there by the name of Order Through Chaos. He's actually the person we partnered with at the top, like right when we launched. We partnered with him to bring his music in and make it part of the Backing Track catalog. And we probably wouldn't have been able to launch without him. He's been working on a new album for the last year and a half ish. It's been a long time coming. It also doesn't have a date, but it will be coming out this year. And we put a little something together for you guys to check that out. It's a new melodic death metal album from Order Through Chaos. So go ahead and hit that one too. So yeah, that's coming from Order Through Chaos. He's also in the Discord, so if you ever want to interact with him, talk to him about music, very chill dude. Come on in, chat with him. That's coming later this year. Again, no date, because he's been working on it for like a year and a half. So he's more of a perfectionist than I am. So just give him some time. But both of those albums, Slayer Wars from Backing Track and whatever he ends up titling it from Order Through Chaos, coming out later this year. Again, head over to the Twitter account. Make sure you drop a follow on it and let us know what you think about everything. Because, like I said, we can't do this without feedback from you guys. So that's enough Backing Track stuff for now. Let's move off.
I did want to say that doesn't mean synth is going away entirely. We've always kind of released something and then followed up on it later, so it's not going away forever. We just, we gotta keep it spicy. Gotta keep, variety's the spice of life.
Yep. So we'll be revisiting that. I don't want to give you a date, but we'll be revisiting that soon.
Yeah.
So. But
right.
Yeah, man, let's get this ball rolling here. That's enough talking about stuff that's not out yet. What do we got going?
Let's talk about some stuff going on regarding content and things like that with our bonus round. I guess I should have said it when the text came up. Whatever. You get the idea. So this is the section dedicated to things related to our videos that we can't, like, I'm not going to make a follow-up video or just shouting out stuff I've been in, for example. And so one such thing is I was in both the PC World podcast, The Full Nerd. The PC World YouTube channel is finally back online, and I was in their first kind of return to show podcast. I will be posting those links in chat and updating the description later. So go check that out with Adam, Brad, and Gordon. Rocking a pretty awesome show, mostly talking about AV1 encoders and things like that. But I was also on the Digital Foundry DF Direct podcast. Now, this one's a little bit older, but again, talking about the AV1 encoder, talking about some game topics, was with Sam from Ars Technica, as well as Alex from Digital Foundry. Awesome company there. Super stoked to be on, anyone else's show. It's always an honor. And so go check out those episodes if you missed them, even though they're a little late. Still good content to catch up on. And I'll probably be on both podcasts again at some point, which is pretty rad. We got ourselves some bits. Thank you. Should probably turn those off for the show, but that's fine. Thank you. Appreciated. Sloth. Yeah.
Well, I'm watching the YouTube feed, so I don't get that anyway.
Moving beyond that, I have some cool stuff coming in the works regarding upcoming content, one of which I forgot to grab, but that's fine. Nikon actually loaned me their Z9 mirrorless camera, which is a full-frame 8K beast. It's kind of like the Canon R5, but Nikon's version. And I've been specifically trying to get the R5 or R5C as my next camera, and so getting to kind of build into it by testing this out for a little bit. I only get it for a few weeks. It's not like a keeper, but super stoked. Been playing with that. Thursday's video, assuming it comes out on Thursday, will be filmed with it, and I'll be filming a few videos with it because it is baller. But huge complaints about the kind of storage for these cameras. So I've been using my Ursa Mini Pro, and with that one, I have a SSD mount for it where I can put in a SATA SSD. I have a 1 or 2 terabyte drive, and I can just record RAW all day in it. The Nikon takes CF Express cards, which I have always avoided like the plague because they are highway robbery. The highest quantity one I could justify in the moment was a 512 gig. I recorded a 16-minute A-roll take, and that took up 400 gigabytes. So basically, every shoot I do, I have to unload the mag, and dump footage and things like that. But it shoots in full 8K 60 RAW if I want, which is bonkers. The RAW performs really, really well, and it has it records 1080p proxies alongside your RAW. So like if you just need to post a super quick clip, you have that available. Or for like Thursday's video, I'm sending files off to my editor Wyatt. I don't got to spend time generating proxies. They come on the memory card, so I can just copy them straight over.
I was gonna say, that probably speeds up your workflow.
It's
quite a bit.
Freaking huge. Super stoked for it. it's a full frame, but I still have to zoom into like 50 millimeters ish to use my teleprompter, but it has eye detect autofocus. So once I got it set up right the first time, I finally have a camera with autofocus where I can like move around and stay in focus. Whereas my Ursa Mini Pro is 100% manual focus, and so shooting it, more cropped in focal lengths has been hell. So it's pretty nice. I still want to. I'm probably going to review.
I have an important question.
Yeah.
How much is it?
It is 5,000.
Sweet. Okay, so you're going to put as the title the cheapest Cinema Pro, right? That's what you're going to put, right?
I mean, it's cheaper than my Ursa and significantly better at this point. So, yeah. Yeah, probably something like that. But it's about 5,000, which is about what the Canon R5C is. I'm going to review it on its own since I have no guarantee that I'll ever even hold an R5 anytime soon. But my goal is to review this, then try out the R5 or R5C, compare them, and then eventually land on one. I was hoping this year to upgrade my Ursa to it. And mainly, like, 8K is cool, but as mentioned by the file size, it's not always super realistic, although it does provide some cropping potential. But, like, I'm mainly after keeping on par with what I have, which is a 4.6K 60 FPS cinema camera that shoots in RAW. Keep on par with that, but gain good autofocus. And so the Canon is probably what I will lean to because I have an entire, like, massive ecosystem of Canon lenses already, and they're easy to adapt to the new RF mount. But the Nikon's pretty cool. It's got some cool stuff. Like, it has picture profile customization where you can, like, go online and tweak all these things on a grid and tweak curves and stuff, and then download that to my memory card and use it, which, like, I've never seen before. So there's some cool stuff for it. It's definitely a learning curve having not used the Nikon in years. Like, my only Nikon I own is a film camera. So, but pretty cool regardless. I did want to go ahead and shout out, by the way, I have launched a threadless shop. So I have my usual merch shop, which is EposVox.gg/merch, or the link I'm posting in chat, which has some really cool, retro themed. We've got desk mats, VHS stickers, pins, things like that. I think quite a few members in our Discord server are rocking those at this point. Pretty rad stuff. I think I even have a sticker sitting right here. Yeah. Super proud of these.
Matt, I just finished cleaning.
Hey! Or down there. Yeah. And these are cool. These are designed by someone in my agency who is a designer, whereas I am not. So that's kind of a separate thing where we're doing the official merch. These are all like not print on demand. They're printed sent to a warehouse and like quality controlled and things like that. But then I also launched a threadless shop for more of my personal artsy things, featuring a lot of my glitch art, some AI stuff I'm experimenting with, mostly focused on my glitch art at the moment. I still have a lot more stuff to add to it, but it's pretty rad. And I wanted to also call out that it's kind of confusing the way they do threadless, because pretty much all of these listings have multiple things. So like the Inside Mine series is actually like, it'll show just the square, but it's got shirts, it's got rugs, and all sorts of stuff. So I've already ordered a couple samples just to make sure my scaling is going right and things like that. So I've got the mech shirt coming in and a couple stickers and things like that, just to make sure. I'm gonna obsess over the quality, even though I'm not, you know, printing things myself. But I'm pretty stoked for this. I've been kind of doing research all year on the right outlets to use for this and the right places to go and blah blah blah. And after seeing all of Rob Sheridan's success with threadless and just the research behind it compared to like Redbubble and the other ones, it seemed like the place to go, and I'm pretty stoked for it. And they give you discounts as a creator, so I was able to order my own shirt at like cost effectively instead of having to pay the full price, which makes it easier for me to iterate. Eventually, I'm hoping by spring, I will get a nice photo printer so I can do proper prints, because that's a whole different way of optimizing scaling and things like that. But pretty sick regardless. CB Demented using the desk mat right now. Hell yeah! I'm pretty sure threadless ships to UK. I am not sure about the Nebula store, but I'm pretty sure, given that we have creators in the UK, like we have creators around the world on Nebula, so I would assume so. I don't have that answer off the top of my head, but yeah. And then only last thing I need to call out with behind the scenes updates, which I did not even pull up ahead of time. At the end of this month, the last weekend of August, I will be at Retro World Expo, which is a retro gaming convention in Connecticut. Let me pull it up here. August 27th through 28th. I will mainly be there on the 27th, Saturday. But I don't have like a panel or anything. I may hang out at someone else's because I'll be hanging out with a few other creators, quite a few creators heading to this thing. But yeah, I'll be walking around show floor. Feel free to ping me on Twitter or something if you're going to be there. Whatever. And yeah, I'll be trying not to spend too much money on games that I have to fly back with, but I'll be there at least for Saturday. What?
No, you're gonna waste a lot of money. Well, not waste, but you're gonna spend a lot of money, and then you're gonna mail it all back to you.
Oh, I did that for CES. It sucks.
I'm pretty sure I'm gonna get a text message the week of the event, and you'll be like, "Hey, man, how much would it cost you to drive a full-size cabinet?"
Yeah, can you come pick up an arcade cap and then drive it down to my house?
I just bought a Blitz 99 machine. Can you bring this back to my house?
I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I'm gonna try. I'm probably still gonna do it, but I'm kind of gonna try. Stay safe while you're at the cons. Yeah, I will be doing my best, of course. But yeah, I am super stoked. I haven't got to go to anything since CES 2020, so this will be my first time pretty much seeing other creators at all, on top of going to an event. So pretty stoked for that. So we're gonna play Blitz 99 in an upcoming show. Oh yeah, we got a whole Let's Play stream planned, everything. as long as Will gets it down to my house, he might run away with it.
It's true. I've been trying to source that one for a while.
So if Will's not on the show after that event, it's because yeah, that's why.
So tune into the next show after this. It's just me playing Blitz 99.
All right, let's move on to our next section, talking about the things that we've been obsessed with lately that we haven't gotten around to making videos on and things like that. And one of the things Will's already made a video on, but has even more thoughts on, which is pretty cool. And I'm stoked to share these freaking stingers that I made last night, because I have no self-control. And I've already got the like macros going with the scene switcher and everything, so I only have to hit one button. This is like already better production quality than Streamer Newz ever was. Maybe when I first ran the show and was like obsessing over it, so maybe it'll die by like month 3. But hey,
No. We'll keep it alive. Yeah, I guess I'll open with the Aorus FO48U. It went on sale pretty recently, and you may have seen Linus LTT did a video about it a little while ago, claiming that he found his home setup monitor. Like, this was going to be it. And almost 8 months to a year later, it went on sale. It was retailing for $1,400, and then it went all the way down to $799. It is from Gigabyte. It is using the same LG panel. As far as I know, it is using the same LG panel that you can find in the C1 or CX. I'm not sure which iteration it is, but it is a beautiful OLED monitor, and it has all the same qualities that you would get from it. 1 millisecond response time, black or gray to gray, vibrant colors, inky blacks, all the stuff that you would want out of that, except it's massive. And I've been using it for a couple of months now. I'm gonna probably do a follow-up video on it, but this thing, I can't overstate how much this thing has kind of revitalized my enjoyment of games. Like, if you've been playing something, you kind of get into a rut where you're like, nothing is interesting. You have 600 games in your Steam catalog and nothing is interesting. But for whatever reason, just the immersion level, and it's for full context here, I don't have a key light on right now. I just have my monitor in front of me. So it's just edge to edge. My complete periphery is just filled with this screen. So I've just been enjoying playing all these games just with my entire field of view just filled with screen. It's the only thing I can really compare it to is using a VR headset. It's a different kind of experience. And I kind of credit this monitor for kind of just making me want to play video games again. It's just awesome. So yeah, I'll probably just do a follow-up video on that at some point just to talk about it. But
have you had any complaints so far?
Complaints?
I've only heard you say good things about this thing.
Not really, because a lot of people complained about it being a little exhausting for your eyes. Even at the distance I'm sitting, which is probably I'm pretty close to this thing.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of people are using it in a dark environment, or they're trying to stream with it, and they also have the key lights on, which I noticed that LTT actually has 2 full-size key lights on. I feel like that's just going to exhaust you. You sit in front of all that light, anything will do that to you.
Yeah.
But I haven't really found anything to complain about. And there's been a ton of warnings about how it can experience screen burn in. Now, granted, we're only two months into having this thing. But I've had the LG CX for 2 years, and I use that every day, and I haven't seen any kind of burn in on that either. So, I mean, I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but if you're careful, I don't feel like you have too much to worry about. I guess the only real complaint would be it's huge. You need the desk space, and I am just about out of desk space. So, but I'm more than happy with it right now. This thing rules. I don't know if I would recommend it at its full price, but if you ever see it drop, it goes below 1,000 or is around that, totally pick that thing up. It's probably going to be the most affordable OLED monitor, gaming monitor that you can get your hands on, because you're using one right now. You're using a QD OLED monitor that you really, really want to keep.
Yeah. So
it has the same benefits, but it's better. It's better in every way, but there's similar benefits to why you would want to use it, right?
Yeah. So I was this close to getting the Aorus as well, and just missed the sale. And so I ended up getting a C1 OLED for our house, because that was kind of what we needed to upgrade anyway, instead of putting a giant 48-inch TV in my gaming space. But I have been working on a review of the Alienware A32DW something or another, the QD OLED. It's really cool. The on-screen display stuff is the firmware is really buggy. Apparently they released a firmware update, but you have to send it back to get an update. And so that's been a whole, I'm not doing that in my review cycle. So that part's not been great, but overall, I've experienced a similar thing where for the first time I consider HDR playable, which is awesome. I've been trying HDR since day one, since I had a monitor that supported it, and on every LCD that I had and etc. it looks bad. And on Windows 10, it was pretty bad. On Windows 11, it's a lot better. Auto HDR, chef's kiss. MCC, Splitgate, older Battlefield titles that don't give the manual toggle, that don't always work. Like having auto HDR, just make sure everything runs in HDR. This
is exactly the thing
so
that
nice.
I loved about mine. Because mine basically was tuned to be a TV, and then they stripped out all the TV stuff to make it a good monitor.
Yeah.
But it's still a beautiful HDR panel. I got a Samsung Odyssey G5 sitting on the floor over here.
Mhm.
Technically HDR compatible. Everything looks awful when you run it in HDR mode. This thing looks awesome. It's probably the first time I've actually done HDR gaming on PC like consistently.
Yeah. I was the same way. I got the G7, the 1440p240. I was like, I'm finally going to buy me an expensive gaming monitor and upgrade. I really am not a fan of that thing, especially after using the QD OLED. I'm like, I don't know that I want to go back now.
You can't.
I don't know that.
Once you've made the switch from LCD, it's impossible.
Obviously,
I just can't.
Obviously, there's still budgetary constraints, but like, especially once they go on sale, if you're spending $500 or more on an LCD panel, there is zero advantage to getting an LCD over an OLED at this point. Especially, like, everyone tries to justify still spending money on LCD over OLED for like high refresh rates and stuff, but the response times, as I covered in my CRT versus LCD video, the response times of an LCD, even at higher refresh rates, are still lower than or still higher than an OLED, which means even at a lower refresh rate, like my ultra wide only runs at like 175 hertz. It's still lower input lag and thus more responsive than a 240 hertz LCD monitor. So you're not actually gaining anything there. And yeah, I'm never buying an LCD again unless it's like a cheapo thing for a family member. Like OLED is 100% the way to go. I've also been worried about burn-in, both because the monitor has the little on-screen display for G-Sync where it shows the frame rate, so it's just like at least the outline of it's always kind of static, which is kind of nervous to me.
Is it like a neon color or like
it's gray? So it should probably be okay.
It'll be all right. Yeah, because I originally had a neon green one through all of the different overlays, and I switched it to gray, and I don't think it's gonna be a problem.
Yeah.
Dr. Fu has a pretty good question in the YouTube chat. Is it that HDR just isn't wide supported yet? Like, do I have anything that's HDR? I would say it's because a lot of the panels that are out there that you can get that are on the affordable range, they are just barely supporting it. So when you flip it to HDR mode, the whole screen just goes dim and it doesn't look as good as it should. Like, you lose all the benefits and all the reason that you would want to play in HDR. Whereas the panels that we're talking about right now, they can actually handle it. They can get super bright. You can get those colors that you want. I think that's maybe into it. Maybe there's some other reasons too, but I feel like that's probably the reason. It's just it's just barely supported by these other monitors.
So the problem for me, and actually this was one of our things, is I've also been trying to make HDR videos, and that has also been a nightmare. HDR is messy because of the technical limitations on the hardware, as well as the million different standards that there are for displaying it. But like on the hardware side, an LCD monitor is never going to be capable of properly displaying HDR due to the contrast that it needs that LCD panels just can't really achieve without a lot of gimmicky tweaks, as well as the individual, everyone talks, like used to, the big conversation was about full aware local dimming. The dimming zones, because you need, like, especially for computer use, this is way more relevant for computer use than TV use, but like if you're moving your cursor around a dark scene on an OLED, you just see your cursor moving around on a dark scene. On an LCD in HDR, it's like I put on like a massive bloom filter, because it has, everything around it is lighting up for that too. And I have
like feathered blur on it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I have two of what were considered the only worthwhile HDR monitors for PC that were HDR 1000. They're Dell's, the UP2718Qs. They were $1,400 each at the time, and I still don't like using them in HDR. And compared to an OLED, they are still nowhere near the same thing. And it's both because of the contrast required, the different lighting zones and things like that, as well as just the crappiness of the panels. Because most LCD panels claiming HDR support only go up to 400 nits. HDR is typically mastered at 1000 nits. And what the nits measurement is the max brightness. It's not the brightness that the whole image is, but the max that a part can get, which is important for that contrast. So say, like, on a scale, if this is the HDR scale, this full pin, then if your monitor only goes up to less than halfway, you're getting less than half of the actual contrast, and that's less than half of the actual HDR. And it's in some monitors it actually looks worse than they do in SDR, which kind of defeats the purpose. There are a couple. I reviewed a BinQ one that had some HDRI modes that put on like cinematic profiles and stuff, and those look stellar. But in most cases, it just doesn't look good.
Not to send you down another tangent, but another good question from the chat. This one over from Twitch. So, dude asks, does MCC on PC have HDR? I've been wanting to play it in HDR, but never seen the option. I believe you mentioned that it's auto HDR.
Yeah,
now,
so it doesn't have a manual toggle. A lot of games now launch without a toggle, which is really frustrating because on Windows you need manual toggles for anything or things don't work right. But it works with auto HDR, and so that's always been the big thing is on Windows 10 for me, even for normal HDR desktop use, HDR has been a mess. It's never worked great. Switching to Windows 11, normal HDR stuff seems to work significantly better because they put in some updates for display handling, and then auto HDR, like it was already great on Xbox, but like it is the coolest thing in the world on Windows 11. Like seeing older PC games and games that should support HDR, like MCC or I don't know, the Battlefield 1 that don't have a toggle for it, render in native HDR. I have only had an issue with one game using auto HDR, and it was Battlefield 1 or 5. No, I think it was 1.
Yeah,
and
so that would just work across your entire PC catalog, right?
Yeah, every game. Because it basically hijacks into the DirectX rendering process. So, like, there may be some specific
I wonder
APIs.
If that would work with, like, PS3. Like, PS3 emulation.
Probably. I feel like they'd be able to get it to work. They're getting everything else to work, like the FSR.
You need to ask Alex Battaglia.
Yeah. But yeah, the only concern to have with auto HDR is there are certain games that don't, like if they're not built with HDR in mind, they don't like have flags to not show you like a full screen of white. And so playing one of the Battlefield games, when I get flashbanged, I genuinely have to like cover my eyes because the entire screen goes full brightness 100% white. And so I'm literally getting flashbanged, which is like immersion, but also, you know, not ideal. But someone keeps saying someone tested auto HDR in their latest vid and it's poo. Well, okay, I've been using it for 4 months now and it's been fantastic. So congrats. Like, I have had zero issues with it, other than sometimes capturing it doesn't look entirely perfect since it's not like running the normal HDR mode. But like, I've had zero games give me issues with it, and the only complaint that I've had has been the, like I said, getting flashbanged is a little bit more immersive than you might be used to.
Oh man, I'm sorry, I missed like the last 30 seconds because I've been really enjoying the Steam Deck over here. But just been running Final Fantasy 12 on it for the last week or so, and just I know that you got it too. I don't know if you wanted to talk about it at all, but
Yeah, I don't even know if mine is.
That is
charged.
the worst segue.
You tried. I'll give you credit.
I tried.
You tried. So I too have a stream every time.
Your Stream Deck. That's right.
Stream Deck. I've got the Stream Deck XL with the controller. I too have a Steam Deck. I have put about 5 hours into it, which is honestly not much. But that's not necessarily the Steam Deck's fault. I will let you push some hype first before I get to be the Debbie Downer.
I've been using this. I was so excited when they announced this thing, and yeah, I've been since it showed up. It's another device that has kind of revitalized my want to play video games because there's only so much time that you can spend sitting at a desk to engage with gaming, or sitting on your couch, and it's just you want to take it and go somewhere else. You know, even if that's just sitting out front of your house or something. And this enables me to do that. But there's also like a ton of games that I would rather play with a controller, but I don't want to sit here like this. I want to be comfortable and be able to just enjoy myself. And this, again, enables me to do that. Dr. Fu asking me about emulation. This is the native port, Final Fantasy 12. You can get it on Steam. It's an excellent version of the game. But yeah, I've played a ton of Dead Cells. I've played a ton of Rogue Legacy 2. It's excellent for like retro games. It's excellent for like indie games and I would say AAA games from like the last 2014 to 2016, 17, that kind of thing. It can run newer stuff too. I mean, it's running Spider-Man, it's running God of War, without issue. And I kind of, the thing that I'm most impressed about is just how easy it is to use it. Like, you hear that it's running Linux, and that sounds intimidating for some reason, but all you do is install it, run the game once, and half the time, if it doesn't work, even if it's listed like as uncompatible, it will work on the second run. Like, it just needed to, I guess, build up a cache or something. I'm not super savvy with how this thing actually works, but it's been a wonderful gadget. And you know, it's not perfect. I freely admit that it's not perfect. Like, I think these back buttons back here are crap. I thought they were crap on the Steam controller, and I think they're still crap now. I don't know if they can make that better, but you know what? This also means
the only part I like about the controls. That's hilarious.
It could also just be like, this is not for me.
Yeah.
You know, this is just not for me. Because someone else could probably use it and I'd be fine with it. I just don't like them. But like the touchpads, I've used it to play RTS games. I've played Diablo 3. I've played a bunch of Diablo-like clones on this thing. This is just wonderful. And I can just take it with me, go enjoy myself, and then come back here. Same game, blow it up on the screen, running it natively on my PC. It's just awesome. Like, I have nothing. I got some negative things to say, but you know, it's like the price. The price is kind of gnarly. The wait time is kind of gnarly. You can't just go and buy it. The screen could be better. Yeah, but this is totally suitable for, or totally fine for what it is. Yeah, this thing rules. I would. This is probably going to be like the. If I were still thinking about gadgets in this way, this would probably be like the Christmas, like, everybody needs to have this thing.
If you can afford a $500 Christmas present.
Yeah, no joke. And there's already competitors coming out that look pretty cool.
Yeah.
But they're a little too expensive. We chatted about that in the Discord a little bit. But what is your what's your take on it?
So, my problem is, of course, as I always have to disclaim, is that I have so little time for games in the first place. But I spent, I think, 3 straight days downloading games.
Oh, yeah.
And I had to keep it plugged in because you can't turn off the screen while it downloads.
Oh, yeah.
And that felt weird. And in that way, I was kind of glad it didn't have an OLED screen like the Switch, because it would have just had all that extra time sitting on nothing. Took way longer than expected. Like, other people have said their Wi-Fi works fine. It doesn't like my Wi-Fi very much, so it runs significantly slower than expected on Wi-Fi, and I didn't have my dock in yet to like plug it into Ethernet. But then, like, what I played on it that I actually put a good amount of time in on, I enjoyed a lot. And so I was playing Nexomon, which is a Pokemon clone, and then I also started putting time in on Diablo Lights. They just had Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance 2 finally ported to PC 20 years later. So got time in on that. Chaos Bane, a couple games like that. Like, those are perfect for it. But I also was very excited. Like, a big thing that was always holding me back from Linux play was first-person shooter stuff. And Halo stuff just got recently finally enabled from what I was seeing, at least testing. And then Splitgate's always ran great on Linux. The controls for shooters for me were immediately a deal breaker. And that's where I start hoping that we see the Steam Deck turn into more of a modular ecosystem where we can swap out control parts and maybe even swap out into an OLED screen, because it's kind of weird having a better screen on a Switch that runs games significantly worse looking when I put them side by side. So I hope we get I'm glad they didn't start out with a modular ecosystem, because we've always seen phones and other things do that, and then they fail before they get any accessories out and you get screwed. But I do hope we eventually get there, because a couple big things, and I've complained about this on other streams, so I won't spend too much time on it. But for playing first-person shooters, I find the R1, R2, L1, R2 placement to be completely unusable. Just like literally unplayable for me. And then the thumbsticks are fine, but I actually dig the back paddles, but they just require a little too much force, in my opinion. The buttons feel fine, but the triggers are what does it for me. And I've been a weird stickler about this ever since the Xbox 360, because Xbox 360 was great. Xbox One, again, I did this on another stream, but I just want to highlight it real quick. Or I moved my controller, and I can't do that, but oh, it's right here. For the Xbox One and Series consoles, they moved to tapering the bumpers down, which to me is the most asinine, ridiculous decision you could make, because when I'm holding the controller, I go to squeeze the trigger, I am pressing down and actuating that bumper. There's no advantage to that. There's only disadvantage. To me, just completely stupid just to make it look stylized, and it's ruined Xbox controllers when they were my favorite for a while. Meanwhile, PlayStation has kept very clear, separate L1, R1, or R1, R2, L2, or whatever. And they always have them optimized so you could theoretically hold it with both fingers on, whereas that's always been a little weird on Xbox. And Steam Deck does a similar thing where they taper it down, except it's also like...
kind of blended.
I know everyone's hands are different, and I think that's why they need a modular system, because Will doesn't like the back buttons, but I love them, and I don't like this. I can't, like, if I'm squeezing this trigger, there is too much strain required to bring my finger up to actually hit this on purpose. Like, very handy for bumper jumper. No, it ruined bumper jumper. Like, I play entirely on bumper jumper, and I was sitting there, like, every time I played Halo 5 and MCC trying to shoot, I was hitting melee. And I'd be like, why am I meleeing? I'm trying to shoot. I thought it was controller desync. Yeah. I thought it was all this other stuff. Come to find out, I was ever so slightly hitting the corner of this, and there is no other way for me to, like, comfortably hold the controller. And so I was jumping and meleeing every time I shoot. And the same thing on this, trying to play Splitgate was an absolute frustration. It didn't run super great, but it ran well enough. Right. So it was already a big shift coming from 175 hertz, you know, PC low latency mode to 45 to 60. But then not being able to quickly hit this bumper because my finger doesn't bend that way was just really weird to me. And so it's one of those things where for some people it's going to be perfect, for others it's not. And when controls, like if you're playing portably, this is all you got. Like you don't have options. That starts to really take away from the experience. So I hope we get more, like I'd love a more controller shape, like my Satisfy grip. Like I'd love to just buy a new shell that has a more controller-like shape. It's not as portable, but if I'm just like my priority is not can I shove this in a bag or my pocket, it's can I hold it comfortably. And so I will make sacrifices to make that work. And so yeah.
Yeah, there was one other thing that was like annoying me, but it was like quality of life stuff where like if you accidentally grazed one of these touchpads, it would switch it into keyboard and mouse emulation mode, and then. But this seems like stuff that the games have to sort out. I'm not worried about that. It is like when it happens, I'm like, ah.
Yeah. There's lots of little software tweaks, but they're updating it constantly, and they'll kind of fix that up very quickly.
Last thing that I got, I'm just gonna touch on this real briefly because I don't want it to sound like an ad, basically. Coming out next month, Arcade 1-Up. I've been talking about buying one of these emulation cabinets for like a year plus. I just can't, like, I can never pull the trigger on it because it's never like the right combination of games, or it's absurdly expensive and you get one. Like the X-Men
that's been my complaint.
Like I just like I would buy that on sale for like $100, but like you want me to spend $700 for one game?
Yeah.
But yeah, they announced that they're going to do Marvel vs. Capcom 2, which is awesome, and it seems to have come about from a YouTuber by the name of Maximilian Dude. He started a bit of a movement to get this game out because it was kind of trapped in licensing hell. Like if you wanted to play this, you kind of need to have already bought it because you couldn't play it anywhere else. You were either grabbing it off of PS3's web store and installing it, or 360, or you had a Dreamcast with an HDMI port or something. You had to have already owned it because it was not being re-released. And after he put out his videos, just trying to rally people around this to get this game out, Arcade 1-Up swooped in and did a deal, and they're doing a full cabinet about it. Or with it, and it's the full collection of the Marvel vs. series. So you get like X-Men versus Street Fighter, you get Marvel vs. Capcom 1 and 2, you get War of the Gems. Like you're getting the full Capcom, Marvel and Capcom catalog here, which is awesome. It's not cheap though. I'm pretty sure it's going to be like $6.99, and also it's huge. It's a cabinet. It's a big cabinet. It would be
still mini cabinets, but they're still. I mean, it takes up space.
It would be ideal if this was a game, but Maximilian Dude had a interesting theory that there may actually be some kind of soured relationship between the gaming division at Capcom and Marvel, and that might be why this isn't getting re-released. But the reason that this is happening is because it's technically classified as a toy, and that relationship probably still is healthy. So this is kind of being positioned by a lot of people as the last chance to get this game, at least until whatever issues they sort out. But who knows how long that's going to take. So I'm pulling the trigger on this thing because it's finally the one. Like, it's the one that has the list of games that I want. But yeah, I'm pretty excited to just have access to a fully online Marvel vs. Capcom 2 that is also cross-play with all of the other cabinets that they've released prior. So all the other games that are listed on there, they're all going to be able to play with this cabinet. So it's kind of weird to think about that, like a cross-play kind of mentality, but it's just cool. So I just wanted to bring it up.
I hope they nail the like input latency and stuff, because last time I saw some reviews of cabs like this, like they weren't the most.
They're taking it seriously.
Experience.
Because they got Justin Wong on the development of this. So he's been testing it from the outset, trying to get that latency as low as possible. I feel like if you're getting Justin Wong involved,
so this might be their best cab too. In which case, like, if you want to get one, Nick with the 5 gifted subs.
Thanks, Nick.
If you've been wanting to get one to, like, mod up and add your own extra games to, this is probably the best one to base it on. I don't know that I'll still be able to justify it. It's also been on my list to get one for a long time, but.
Greg is saying the thing that pretty much everyone always says when you bring it up. Yes, these cabinets have online play, and it's actually good. Like, you would think that it wouldn't be great, but it's actually good, and it's one of the reasons they're cool. Because you can get that cabinet experience at home, and you can play online. It's awesome.
That's really rad,
I just wanted to touch on that real quick. I don't know. Did you have anything off of your list here? Because I'm monitoring the timeline. So
yeah, just because I put it in the title, I guess I'll give a couple updates briefly regarding AV1 stuff. So I have been testing very thoroughly having the A380 in my PC as a dual GPU partnered with my RTX 3090. I've been rendering most of my videos you've seen since my AV1 video in AV1. And so it will render the video on the 3090, but encode it on the A380, and have had basically no issues and no performance degradation. Like, I even did side-by-side encodes of NVENC versus AV1, and no real performance penalty either. So that has been great. And then I am working on getting some data together for what sizes you need, because the default CQP values, the quality levels that you put it at for AV1 in DaVinci Resolve, for example, are defaulted to what would normally be there for H.264 or something. And so I'm ending up with these massive file sizes of like 14 gigs versus like 2 in HEVC. And that's because it's doing some absurd quality thing, because the CQP values for each encoder are very different. So like, best quality for H.264 is usually around 14. For HEVC, it's 21. For AV1, we're looking at like 45 or 50. Like, it's wildly further down the scale. And so I'm working on some data for that, because I had a ton of questions regarding like archive videos, the videos you're saving and things like that, as well as I know we're going to be covering some other GPUs with AV1 encoding very soon, as we've had a bunch of stuff come up, and LTT just covered the A40s, the workstation GPUs, which we'll actually talk about in the news section for a minute. But lots of data coming up. It won't be within the next couple weeks, because I do have that trip at the end of the month, and I got some other stuff I got to get out, and I need time to focus and sit down on data gathering. But some really cool stuff regarding that. But yeah,
those videos about the Intel Arc. What was their branding? Go Beyond. That's a different thing.
Yeah. So just complete tangent before we get to the news. I don't understand why the box actually said that, because the card itself says "Into the Unknown." I just assumed it was some weird Chinese translation thing, because every product I get from China has bizarre half English on it. And I was just like, oh, they thought "Into the Unknown" sounded cool. But the card says "Unknown." So I think the box has a typo, or they really were that afraid of the trademark that they didn't put it on the box, but they put it on the product itself.
Oh,
it's super weird. Like,
I'm waiting for someone to be a really super fan of that product, and then they get "Into the Unknown" tattooed on them.
Oh my god, yeah. That'll go up there with no regrets.
And the Zune guy.
Yeah. All right, we got some news to talk about, but real quick before we do, I wanted to we don't have a sponsor for this episode, but I did want to give a huge shout out to Ping Ping is the video calling, chatting service that's kind of not selling it very well. It's basically meant to host shows like these where you have real-time interaction remotely. It is super low latency. It is very high quality, and it runs by giving you just like a low-quality preview in the browser, but then you create an embed that you can add into OBS, and you can either add your camera to it and then bring that back into OBS, or do what I do, which is sending the virtual camera out to Ping so Will can see the whole show as it's being produced, and then I just have Will added in here in full 1080p. And you get audio with it. You can have a whole bunch of guests if you want. You can assign someone else to be a show producer. It's been really cool, and they've been a huge help getting me set up for these kinds of shows, because this kind of collaborative stuff is what I want to do moving forward. And as they are obviously
I guess WAN Show uses this too?
Yeah. As they've been advertising,
rules.
WAN Show uses it whenever they do remote stuff as well. And that's been pretty good. Whenever they frame it right, like... There's been a couple times where they put the water bottles in front of whoever's in the green screen, and I don't notice it at first when I'm not giving it full attention. I'm like, wait, they're green screened? So
I'll do what they do. Here we go. Compressed air.
Not sponsored by compressed air. Sunkiss needs to hit me up though after all these years.
Crappy knockoff Yankee Candle.
Yankee Candle. All right. Anyway, let's get to some news. Which I have it. There it is. All right, so we only have a few minutes left, so we're going to kind of breeze through these a little bit, but there are some interesting news things that I wanted to highlight in case you missed it. By the way, we talk about all of this in our Discord server, discord.gg/EposVox. That's where you can stay the most up to date on tech news and streaming product news. But we have some interesting announcements this week. Yamaha, who hasn't made a product related to, consumer streaming that I have ever been aware of, is now making gaming mixers, and as well as a headset to pair with it, which is interesting. So this is the ZG01, and it is kind of like a little mini Go XLR. It's got your overall volume dial, your fader for your primary input. You got some input switching, and then they're selling it as a game streaming audio mixer because the big goal is like managing party chat and things like that, which is really interesting. Except from what I can tell, they left off a kind of crucial feature, which is like the loop back to your controller, because they have, I don't know if this is going to show it, the pictures will show it. They have HDMI pass through, so you can actually hook in, you can hook in your game console audio, which is freaking insane.
It's got just It's just got an HDMI port right on. I guess it would need that because new consoles don't have optical anymore.
Because there's no audio extractors. So this is kind of a step ahead of the Go XLR in that regard. But it doesn't act as a capture card. Like, I feel like they could have gone a little bit further and made it also be the capture card, which would be cool. But it does have, although, okay, I was basing it not having controller output on what other people were saying. Oh, that's a speaker out. Yeah. Okay. So you can use 3.5 millimeter mic and aux-in input for like audio, and then you've got 2 HDMI inputs with 1 output. So you could have like 2 separate consoles and switch between them, which saves you an HDMI switch, and then just run the output to your capture card, whatever, and it will pull the audio from that. So you can capture console party chat audio by just setting it to HDMI, but then you have no easy way of running it back to your controller.
How long till they do a pro version that's also a capture card?
Hopefully soon, if they can get the capture stuff right. I never trust like video companies to do audio right and audio companies to do video right, but it would be pretty dope. However, Xbox now has Discord support. PlayStation is presumably getting it since they were supposed to be the first one, and then nothing ever happened. So hopefully they will get proper Discord audio support. At which point that'll be a non-issue because you can just run audio through your computer. But pretty sick. It's a little expensive. I mean, it competes with the Go XLR, so it's competitive in terms of price with the Go XLR. I do know that I have a review unit coming. I don't know when exactly, but I am pretty stoked for that, and we'll have to test the latency on the HDMI and make sure all of that is good. Someone said,
what kind of mics can it drive? Like, power-wise? Did it mention?
I don't think it does. It's probably got
you're going to find out, so.
Yeah, we'll find out when we test it. Yeah, it does. Weirdly, there's not a whole lot of specs in this press release, but that's fine. That's what my video's for. Get subscribed. Yeah.
That's cool. I didn't know that thing existed.
But yeah, very cool. And they have a headset they launched with it that you can plug in the front. It probably isn't great, but if they send it to me, I'll test it because, but with the 3D chats, but yeah, I'm already hating all of this. So who knows? But pretty sick. And then another unexpected product release. Freaking Glorious releasing, in a way, like a little side jab at Stream Deck stuff, giving us a numpad that has a fader and a dial on it, which is super weird. And it's still fully customizable. You can swap the switches and all of that. Joy, if that's what you're into. But it has a little fader and a dial. So if you're interested in, you know, getting your own macro pad that just has like some control on it, like I have the little numpad attachment from Mountain here that has the Stream Deck on top. You could theoretically program it up to just be a whole macro pad on its own. It remains to be seen how great the... Oh, and it's wireless. It remains to be seen how great the compatibility with the fader and the dial is, because that's always a crapshoot, like whether it works with what you want it to or not. But conceptually, it's pretty cool. You know, it's going to be super expensive, but if you're already like all GMMK'd up, then it might be pretty sick. Nice little RGB on the side, and by being a separate device and wireless, you could have it on either side if you're left-handed or whatever. So a lot of flexibility there. Honestly, it might make more sense if you're not using it as a numpad to put it on the left side, because you can quickly use that fader and dial on the left, whereas you'd be bumping, like using your mouse hand for it. So
I look forward to the 6-hour Terran review, where he has 12 of them in.
For real. Just wanted to briefly mention, apparently NVIDIA had projected $1.4 billion more in profits for Q2 before the GPU miner crash happened, which is not something to feel bad for them for, because they still make way too much money, but
they still made a lot of money.
Yeah, it kind of reveals how much they were banking on the crypto stuff. Like, they've kind of gone back and forth in their PR of kind of being like, hey, we're focusing on the gamers, and the gamers are the ones buying our cards, but then also making mining cards and blah, blah, blah. And so they've been kind of back and forth about actually acknowledging whether crypto is a significant part of their business. There's whatever, you know, even though everyone kind of knew it was, but this makes it clear, like, they were banking on a lot more crypto sales than they actually were able to do thanks to the crash. It also makes me wonder if there will be, like, if they have an extra overflow of stock of the crypto-specific cards that they were making, and what will become of those, because that's an interesting consequence of that, since they were making crypto-specific cards.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
I wonder if they, like, were they just like they were just cards with like no video out or anything like that? They're kind of like workstation cards.
Yeah, for the most part. So I'm wondering if we'll see them like repurposed for other things, and someone will like open it up and be like, "Wait a minute, this is just a mining card." But yeah, interesting. Other GPU news. Again, Intel launched announced at least their Pro versions of Arc graphics cards. I am most excited for these, especially in the streaming and content creator space, because they are single slot, they are bus powered, so you don't need a power supply jack, you don't need to block any other PCIe slots. They don't generate a lot of heat anyway. They can be low profile, still get you some video outputs, and get you the encoder.
These are still not the ones targeting like gaming performance stuff yet, right?
But
this is professional work,
right?
Workstation PC stuff.
But for slotting in your editing PC or your streaming PC, or to keep you from needing a streaming PC, assuming they're not significantly more expensive than the already A380, which is supposed to be $130-ish bucks according to rumors, assuming they're not that much more expensive than that, which they very well could be, but if they're not, this would be the card to get for your streaming use, because single slot and all this is significantly more advantageous. And so I'm hoping to get my hands on one of these at some point, but again, if they're like $300 versus $130, then it's not just get the 2-slot and figure it out. But MSI also announced a single slot half-height one that's only currently in their pre-built computer that they're shipping with it. But if they ship it on their own at some point, this might be the way to go too, because again, you want as small as possible. Like I'm currently running into, even with my Threadripper Pro build with all the PCIe slots, my GPUs are blocking slots, and I tried using a riser to run under the graphics card to like just still use my slots, and even fully breaking down the riser and like just having it where it's the bare PCB and the wire is folded in half, and then modding my GPU shroud to cut out where that would fit, I still can't get it to fit underneath the graphics card. So I want single slot GPUs whenever possible, and so literally just buying this will immediately allow me to add in another card that I need into my system and automatically be a win. So hopefully one of these comes to the US market, and hopefully their GPU division doesn't crumble. But yeah,
I got my fingers crossed, man. Competition's good.
Yeah.
Even if these first few cards come out, they don't reach that performance level of like the 3080 or 4080 or whatever card is out at the time. They don't reach it. It's okay.
Yeah.
Competition's good.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I feel like everyone's demanding GPU competition and then immediately shutting down Intel when they try. And like, I feel like targeting the low end is a smart way to go to start out. It clearly causes the PR issue we're experiencing, but it means that they can like really supplement some of these other workflows for that to like kind of build confidence. Like the A380 was never going to be a great gaming card because the 1030 isn't a great gaming card. Like,
I don't know if you could answer this question quickly. If you can, go for it.
The performance hit?
Yes. Well, I'll just read it. Kivy, would there not be a performance hit from having the video go from your NVIDIA card to your AV1 encoder card? I know NVIDIA prides itself on keeping the frames on the card when encoding.
So theoretically, there would be. My biggest concern with the performance hit has always been splitting up your PCIe lanes. I did a video a few years ago back in my apartment where, after everyone claims setting your GPU to X8 doesn't impact performance in Warzone and other bigger games, just putting a second GPU on a consumer board, I immediately saw performance decreases in games. But on modern boards, we're seeing more lanes being added now these days, and that's less of a problem. But in terms of transferring the textures, there is more bandwidth used there and potentially a performance hit. But even in my testing when I covered the 12900K, just sending a NVIDIA game rendering on an NVIDIA GPU to QuickSync on the CPU technically had less of a performance hit than NVINC in some of the cases I looked at. And so zero copy, which is keeping everything on the card, still has plenty of advantages, but I don't think it's going to be a big deal moving forward. And from what I can tell, a big flaw with my first video was using both NVIDIA GPUs. Apparently, that's just a worst case scenario because a lot of people have said they use AMD as their main and NVIDIA as second without issues. And in all of my testing, NVIDIA main and Intel secondary seems to work fine now. So things are getting better. I will obviously test that in the streaming test for that very use case and let you know, but I don't think it's going to be significant, and it's probably going to be negligible enough that the trade-off of the AV1 encoding is going to be well worth it.
There you go.
Got a couple final topics as we got to wrap up here. I got to go do a dad thing. But Samsung has listed their PCIe 5.0 SSD, which is exciting in some ways. You know that's going to be expensive up front. It's exciting in the potential speed that it has. But my frustration at the moment with all of these new SSDs is having the faster controller only gets you so far when we keep double stacking the NAND. So like when we're on QLC and stuff like that now, you lose so much speed when you get past half or even a quarter capacity stored on those drives that then you lose any advantage. And so I got so burned by all those Intel NVMe SSDs, not the Optane, the normal ones that were QLC, where they got slower than a SATA SSD after they were half full. And so using it for like an operating system drive where you're gonna load it up, it got so much slower and so much worse. And so I love that they weren't not gonna make PCIe 5.0 controllers, but until we find a workaround for that weird limitation that NVMe has really started running into, I don't see it being worth it for most people. Now, a PCIe 5.0 controller to do a big raid of them, exciting. I still want to keep upping my raids, but I don't know, man. I'm frustrated at those. Okay, Tom Hardware, I do not want emails. And then lastly, a minor update. If you've been following Alex Battaglia from Digital Foundry, he has been complaining about stutters in Unreal Engine 5 PC games for a very long time. This isn't a problem on console because they can ship precompiled shaders for your game, and because, you know, it's a locked set of hardware, but you can't really do that on PC. And so it's been an issue repeatedly where games may run better on PC than console, but they have a worse experience due to stutter and frame pacing issues. And he's been covering that thoroughly on the Digital Foundry YouTube channel. Well, apparently they have a roadmap now for Unreal Engine 5.1 update, which will allow for better shader distribution and compiling that will alleviate this issue. And so I am very stoked for that because UE5 is awesome, both from like a development perspective and a gaming perspective, but I've noticed that issue even on my rigs too. So I'm pretty stoked for better performance for PCs where it should be.
Not bad.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Well, that's episode 0 in the can. I guess should we just put it to the people watching? Like, if you catch the VOD, or because this is going up as an audio version too somewhere.
Yes, I won't have it immediately, but I will be doing a full audio podcast for this. Something I promised with Streamer Newz and never came to fruition, but it's going to happen here.
But yeah, I guess we should put it to the audience. Like, do you like this day? Do you like this day? Do you like this time? Like, you want it to run longer, less? Like, you should, give us feedback. Like, what I said.
Let us know. I will have time codes up in a couple hours after I get done with my family stuff in the comments or in the description, or if someone comments it beforehand, I'll just pin you. So it'll be watchable as a VOD as always. And like you said, let us know about the time and the day. This is a big shift for the format, but potentially for the better. So thank you for watching.
My name's been Luke. I mean, wait a minute. Sorry.
What?
I said my name's been Luke. Sorry. Wait a minute. Yep. Again, my name's Will. I'll be back for future episodes. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah. And thank you for watching. Remember, be kind. Rewind. I don't have a button for my end screen. I am a great streamer.
We planned everything.
Yep.